This is a winged ant pattern. Good terrestrial pattern. I think I saw it on McFly Angler. I think they called it a dry fly ant or something like that. Just about all of the, other than the sunken ant, I think all of the ants I tie are dry patterns. But it's late summer, early fall, which is a good time for terrestrials, so thought I would throw this pattern out here. I've got a size 16 hook here in my vise, and we're just starting a thread base. I'm going to just take that down to the bend of the hook and maybe one wrap forward. So here I'm going to take a wisp of black Superfine dubbing as well as a rusty brown Superfine. When I tie this, I don't like to mix them. I'm just going to lap one right over the top of the other one. And that just, for me anyway, creates a better blend, rather than tearing them apart and mixing them together that way. So I'm going to tightly dub this onto my thread. And we're going to build up a nice abdomen here. The back abdomen we're going to make a little bit more elongated, so I'm going to just take that around the bend of the hook just a little ways. I'm going to bring it forward a little ways. So I'm setting kind of the base of the length that I want this back end to be. And then I'm just going to take the rest of these wraps to create kind of a, almost a football shape here. I'm going to reach in and tighten up my thread as I go along. I want that to be just like an ant, kind of bulbous back there. I'm going to bring it right back up to the front, and because, as we know, ants are segmented, we're going to go ahead and create a tiny little gap there. I want to make sure that I've got good black thread wraps here in the segment in between. So I'm taking just another wisp of the rusty brown Superfine and the black. Go ahead and dub that on here to do our next segment. And this one may be a little bit more pronounced than the other one, but it's not going to be as oblong. Just creating that classic ant shape. So I'm going to work more towards the middle and not nearly as much over to the sides. And then when I'm done, I'm going to take my thread forward, and I'm actually going to go ahead and cover the rest of the hook shank. I started this back a little bit, just beyond the 1/2 point as kind of a measuring point for the fly. Now we're going to take some Antron yarn. This is kind of a white, but it's very shiny, which is what I'm looking for here. I want that right over the center top. I'm going to wrap back on it a little bit, secure it in place, then I'm going to wrap forward on it. Once I have that in place, I'm just going to grab my scissors. Just cutting that off pretty close. Making sure I'm still holding those backwards. We'll go ahead and clean up those butt ends. Bring our thread right back into the base of that wing that we just created. Now we'll go ahead and trim this. I want this wing to extend to about the back of that abdomen, and I want it kind of on an angle, so I'm going to take my scissors, hold them parallel while I make this cut. Now I'll make just a little bit more of an angled cut. The last material, we're going to add a piece of grizzly hackle to hackle this fly up at the front. Going to kind of secure that down, stand it up, get a wrap underneath that stem so it stands straight up. I'll take another wrap, just securing that down. I'm going to fold that back a little bit just so I trap it a little bit closer. And then I'll just go ahead and start taking thread wraps forward. That stem will bend forward on us. Once I get to about there, we'll go ahead and kind of bend that stem. Trying not to poke myself with the hook like I just did. If you see any blood, sorry about that. Hopefully you're not squeamish. Caught the hook point pretty good in my finger. So go ahead and take that hackle. We want to get our first wrap right back against the wing here. One full wrap there, and then we're just going to take a few touching wraps moving forward. This is not a heavily hackled fly. So get it to about that point, we're going to go ahead and work on capturing that. Looks like we've trapped a few fibers, but that's alright. We'll tweezer those out. So a couple of wraps over the top of that. Kind of stroke these back a little bit, take a couple of wraps behind the eye. I'm just going to go ahead and turn my vise here so I can access the stem of that hackle. Now we'll just grab our whip finisher and get a couple of wraps here right behind the eye. Make sure that's nice and secure. Come in with our thread cutter and cut our thread. And there you have it. There's the flying ant, the winged ant. Great dry ant pattern. Pretty, as you can see, pretty easy to tie up. Just a few materials involved. So grab yourself a hook and throw it in your vise. Give this one a shot.